memorize all of that and switch from all the characters and everything?
We've been working on this for 6 weeks, that was about the rehearsal process. So as soon as I got the script, I read it out loud to a video or to like a little recording on my phone, and every chance that I got, I listened to it at least once a day, twice if I could, and then we, had our rehearsals and stuff, but I didn't let a day go by where I didn't at least try and listen to the words, so they were stuck in my brain. I'm kind of looking forward to tomorrow where I don't have to listen to it. Where I did not have dreams about the words of the show. But, yeah.
Awesome, yeah. It's,
How did I switch? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I did I don't know. That was a process.
of course.
Derek helped me with that. So. I was like, what do I do for this guy? I don't know.
Yeah, so there are 7 characters in the show that she switches between. There's, first and foremost, Velda. We met her first in the show. She is the youngest of all of the cast members. She's 6.
6, yeah.
And then Anna, who is Velda's older sister, she is 13.
I think it's at 14.
14, she's 14 years old. Other people that we meet in the production are Carol, who is the wife of the gunman himself. We meet the gunman himself a few times in the show. We meet Sherry Local, who is just a random woman in the community that lives in the town. We meet America, who is a 16-year-old Hispanic teenager that works at a grocery store there in the town. And we meet Bill. Bill is a college professor who kind of takes over the first press conference, if you will, the night that it happened. The police didn't say much in the actual real story of this world because the Amish asked them to remove themselves from the media, which I absolutely understand and respect, but the media still had a lot of questions. So a liaison between the Amish community and American society, if you will, a secular society, kind of took over putting any word out through the media. If you did not know, this work is entirely fictionalized. The actual events took place. There was an Amish school shooting in Pennsylvania, unfortunately, where 10 young Amish ladies lost their lives. None of these names were those girls. The shooter was not Edward. The wife was not Carol. Jessica Dickey took a lot of liberties in the story and fictionalized the tale to respect the Amish because they did not want this story specifically to go public. But many people felt that it was an important story to be told still, so they respected their wishes and took some of the facts of the case and then changed them so that way we're still protecting the innocent. And the Amish do believe that Eddie, one of the gunman himself, is one of the innocents in the story as well. For whatever reasons he was driven to shoot these girls were not his own psychoses. In a sense, according to the Amish. We can get into that conversation at another talkback maybe when we have a little bit more time, because that's a lot to unpack. Which was the hardest and which was the easiest role for you to find?
Carol and I had, I don't know, like Carol spoke to me. I try not to cuss that much in real life, but she spoke to me as a mother of 2, and I have 2 kids of my own. So like I identified a lot with Carol.
Absolutely.
And like going through a tough time where you're like, what is happening? My whole life is falling apart. So I got her. Bill was tough. There was a rehearsal where I just went to the podium, and every time I stepped to the podium, I'm like, what is Bill talking about now? I don't even know. Like, he's just going on and rambling. I have no idea. And I just kept calling line. I was like, I can't find Bill. But then a lot of people have told me that they really thought that Bill stood out as a different character for me. So I guess I found Bill somewhere. I told my husband last night that I was imitating him at the podium. He's a math teacher, and he likes to talk a lot, and he like has this aura about him. And I was like, I didn't pause as much as you would because I would never have gotten through the show, but like, it takes long dramatic pauses whenever he speaks, and I was like, that was Bill for me.
Art imitating life.
Yeah, right?
So when we approach a piece like this, one of the biggest questions that you get asked is, why are you choosing a play about a school shooting? Why? And especially coming out of a pandemic, when we've spent the last year and a half in kind of this like mental space where we might not be okay every day. Why did we want to go down a route of such a heavy production? And I always answer that by saying, yes, the content is extremely dark and the content is extremely heavy, but this is such a hopeful play. We all have been in a dark place where we're questioning our own sanity. We were all stuck in quarantine for how long and questioned our sanity, you know, with constant guidelines changing and coming in and out, and just not knowing what's gonna happen the next day. We question our own sanity a little bit. So I felt that this was a piece we could identify with a little bit, like how do we deal with trauma in our community? We might not call a pandemic traumatizing, but it is. It's absolutely traumatizing for us. And I really wanted to focus on the positivity of the show, which is forgiveness. The entire show is about forgiveness, the act of forgiveness. How do the Amish forgive the gunman? How do the Amish forgive themselves? How does Carol forgive her husband? How does Carol forgive herself? Sherry has that brilliant moment where she says, you know, how could a wife not know something like this? And that affects Carol for the rest of the play. She gets stuck on that word sicko. And she just repeats sicko, sicko, sicko over and over and over again. She gets caught in this trap. Do you want to talk a little bit about how to keep yourself in the light in this production? Because it can get very heavy for the actors playing all of these roles, as you can imagine.
Yeah, if there were 7 different people up here, Carol could take a moment to wallow in her grief a little bit and like lose herself in that moment, but I had to like become a teenager, you know, so it's like, yeah, I really just had to go, okay, that moment's over, I have to move on to the next moment, you know, and just be in that moment and in that character every single time. There were moments in the show where I would be like, if I started to get in my head and be like, oh shoot, who's next? What's happening next? Like I would lose what I was doing, and I realized I can't do that. Like when I get to the end of this person, the next thing comes, it happens. It just happens naturally, but I had to be each person in that moment every time.
Absolutely right. One of my favorite things about the play is the ending, where, you know, Velda has just been shot, and the first thing she sees is God in her presence, and to lead into that conversation, Bill has a phenomenal statement where he says, you know, no matter what religion you are, we can all identify with this story, and she then says, you know, can you see him? And I think the him, yes, refers to her own religion and her personal God, but I think it also speaks to the clarity that we can seek in forgiveness ourselves, and the clarity we can, if there's anything heavy on our hearts or on our own shoulders, we can release that a little bit. We just have to keep looking, which is the last line of the play. I think it's a brilliant line to leave on when you walk out of the theater in the show. It's just keep looking, keep striving for the next moment in your life. Keep striving to release something that may be holding you back. Keep striving to release something that may be holding a relative or a friend of yours back that you don't even realize you're carrying in your relationship with them. Any final thoughts from you before I open it up to questions? Cool, awesome. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Did you do any studying on Amish at all?
My mom found a book in her garage as we were going and preparing a garage sale that was like a history of the Amish. And I briefly started like reading through the beginning of it, and it was talking about the Anabaptists, and I was like, Bill talks about this history. I did not have a chance to read the entire book. I, you know, have a lot of things going on, but I would have liked to do a little bit more research into it. I grew up in Michigan and lived in the Midwest most of my life until I, moved down here in my 20s. So I, was a little bit more exposed to the Amish community, I think, up there than I ever have been when I lived down here.
There is an Amish community in St. Pete.
I know.
Uh-huh.
We actually, kind of reached out to them and said, how do you pronounce this word? So, because we're like, Yeah, so, yeah.
There are Yoders down here,
Yep.
which are related to them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Yes, we're from Pennsylvania.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, fantastic, awesome.
Nice.
And, yeah.
Yep. I've been to the Yoder family restaurant down in Sarasota a few times.
Good food.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing food. Any other questions or thoughts or comments? Yeah.
Knowing that it's based on a real thing, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that, oh, by the way, you did a fabulous job. But knowing that it is based on a real thing that happened,
Mhm.
going over and over that, how did that affect you?
It's very, it was heavy, the first time I read the script, I was like, wow, you know, I can't even imagine, you know, and every time I said the words that Carol was saying, like, I can't even imagine what he and his wife must have been through, what his little girls went through, like, I feel that, I'm like, this actually happened to real people. I mean, how does anybody go through something like that and continue with their life? But, yeah, so I mean, there's definitely more of a weight to it because it was based on something that actually happened. And I kind of believes Carol's whole speech where I say, this happens every day. You turn on the news and you see more and more stories like this every day. How can we live in this society where this stuff happens? Like, it's not okay. But, you know, there's a lot of truth in all of the words in this play, and I just went with that. So, yeah.
This may not be a fair question, but do you have any idea, because it's not really, you probably don't know, but any idea how the Amish have responded to this show? They
Yeah, so very mixed emotions, you know. There have been Amish individuals who absolutely embrace this production. There have been productions of this play that have included the Amish and building the costume and everything like that. We reached out to part of the Amish community ourselves to open up a dialogue about the show a little bit. They themselves weren't familiar with the show and ordered the script from the website company that you can buy the script from and read it. As always in work, there are fictionalized moments that, and especially in a marginalized group such as the Amish, they might not feel completely accurately represented, but I feel that this is a work to try to represent to a secular audience. This isn't a work written for the Amish audience. So there's some fallacy in the Amish community in the work that just because we can't understand the Amish culture completely, and I think the show would be much longer than a 1 act, 90 minutes, if we went in to really try to fathom the concept of Amish life and Amish culture. So there have been mixed emotions in the Amish community. Some Amish people are very open and accepting that the work is out there and there is Amish life being represented to a secular audience, and then there are some Amish who aren't as friendly to the cause, and I understand and respect both sides, you know, but yeah, that's, yes, both good and bad from the Amish community. Anyone else? Well, awesome, fantastic. Thank you guys for staying and coming today. We appreciate it. One more huge round of applause for Michele, please. Thank you all so much for coming and have a great day, guys.